Just to help you with your new instrument, I'd like to give you a few little tips on looking after it. Essentially, it's like a violin. It has the 4 strings, the bridge, fingerboard, tailpiece, and pegs and a nut. But being so small, there's a few things just to watch out for. First of all, on the pegs, obviously they're very, very thin and a little bit more delicate than violin pegs would be. So just a bit of care needs to be taken when you're turning them, that you don't put any extra pressure on them side to side that could bend or break the peg. The other thing to watch out for, particularly with the higher string, is not to get too much of the string wound right against the peg box. If you can just see inside in there, I've got the top string wound so that it's not pushing right up against the wall of the peg box. That's important because that's a sharp corner, and the string being so thin, if it gets wound tightly in that corner, it could cause it to snap. Gut strings are a little bit more susceptible to that than metal strings would be. If you find that the string is getting wound too closely to the peg box, it's quite simple to adjust. The thing to do is to slacken off the peg first of all. If I just show you this way, I'm going to slacken the peg off a little bit, just keeping the tension on it, and I'm just going to pull the peg out, which pushes the string along the peg and winds it closer to where it's already being wound. I can then wind it back up closer to pitch without pushing the peg all the way in, but as I get closer to what it should be, I just push it in until it sticks, and you can see there the string is wound just a little bit away from the peg box wall. Now we're a little bit too low obviously, but because that's over there, as I wind it up to pitch, it should stay away from the peg box wall. If it still winds too close, just slacken it off a little bit more and do it again. A bit of practice and you'll get used to doing it. Gut strings do stretch over time, so you'll find that as the string ages a little bit, you need to do that occasionally just to make sure that the string is not getting tightly wound against the peg box wall. It's also the same for the bottom string, but this time it's not going to cause any problems of breaking, but because of the angle of the string going off the nut towards the peg, the tendency is for the string to be wound against the peg box wall, and that itself pulls the peg into its hole, and therefore the peg gets tighter and tighter. So again, if it happens, slacken the peg off, pull the peg out, and that pushes the string along the peg, and then as you wind it back up in, push it until it sticks, and then you've got a bit of room in order to get it tuned up in the right place. As you're tuning, as I said, the strings can stretch a little bit, or they will stretch over time, and the movement of the strings always towards the peg has the tendency to pull the bridge, and there's the risk that the bridge can lean a little bit towards the pegs, and if that was to happen too much, it would lean all the way and fall over. So you just need to keep an eye on the bridge so that it remains at 90 degrees to the sides of the instrument. And if it is starting to lean, which it certainly will do, you just need to just pull it back a little bit. If you hold the instrument, you can, with a couple of fingers, just edge it backwards and keep it in an upright position. Just have a look straight on as well, making sure that the bridge is straight to the sides of the instrument and it's not at an angle, and also that its position doesn't change. You can see where the feet are in relation to the bottom of the sound holes. Occasionally I do put it in a slightly different place, might be a little bit higher, but whenever you get the instrument, just have a look at where the bridge is first and try and make sure that it remains in that position. If you find it needs to be moved considerably, the best thing to do is just slacken the strings off a fair amount so that you've got enough, the strings are slack enough for you to be able to slide it and move it into position. The other thing to mention in looking after it is the bow. Again, essentially an ordinary bow, but unlike a modern violin bow, it doesn't have the adjuster, it's a fixed, we call it a clip-in frog. So the frog here is not actually attached to the bow, it's just held in position by the tension of the hairs. And it's not a bad idea, if you're not going to be using the pochette for a period of time, it's not a bad idea just to take the tension off the hair by releasing the frog from its slot. And I tend to hold the bow like this, and just, as you can see, I'm just flexing it, which releases the tension, and as I do that I can lift the frog just at the front end So just at the very front end I'm lifting it up, and then it slides and it's just released. So just in that position you can see the stick is straighter now, and the tension is gone from the hair. And then to put it back in, it's just the same but in reverse. I'm going to bend the stick slightly up here and slide it back until it clips into place. Let's do that again. I'm going to bend the stick, slide it, and it drops into place, and then release the tension again. And there we go. Just give you a little tune to finish off. So as I've just had to move that top string up by quite a bit, the bridge has just pulled forward a little bit. It's just leaning towards the peg box end. So before I do anything else, I'm just going to lean that back. Make sure that it's straight on the instrument.